Hey, this is part two of my interview with Michael Sayen on his personal story. So we're going to cover a few different topics, but the one I thought was really interesting that Michael talked about was his experience going to Bible college and the dynamics there where the college is teaching egalitarian values, even though they still kind of believe in biblical roles, but it really is kind of egalitarian is how it really plays out. But how these egalitarian values kind of lead to the megachurch egalitarian values playing out in society. Talks about the megachurch versus the homeschool churches in Southern California. I thought that was kind of interesting, the dynamic there. And how the manosphere pushed for patriarchy before anyone else in society, including the church, pushed for patriarchy, this manosphere, if you've heard that term. And then he talked about how, and I didn't know this, that feminists revived the word patriarchy for a straw man to attack. Because really, patriarchy wasn't kind of a mainstream word until the feminists revived it. And then we talk and kind of wrap up with the proper role of women teaching women, and that wouldn't include really earning seminary degrees for that proper role. Now, hey, if you're liking this content, like, subscribe, and give me a comment below. That really helps me out. All right, here we go.
Yeah, so thank you. So what happened was during this when I was going through Bible college, I was really interested in marriage, like a whole bunch of young guys are, right? And I came from
Yeah.
my mom was married, divorced twice before. Came from a lot of broken homes,
Wait a minute. That's
step.
supposed to be a great place to meet a wife, right? In Bible college. I've heard that.
And that's what a lot of girls go there for. I don't think guys go there for that as much. They do hope for that, but girls will go specifically to college to meet a guy who is
Yeah.
a Christian.
Because what
They
else are you
say
doing in Bible college? You gonna be missionaries? Well, maybe you're gonna be
Right.
missionaries.
They say missionary mics, right? All the girls are looking for missionary mics, and all the guys are looking for Bible Barbies, right? That's what we always say. So the girls are looking for missionary mics because they want some guy that is going to be out there saving the world, doing traveling, right? Which girls love, right? And they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
travel, and so they're looking for. But guys love the Bible, so they're looking for Bible Barbies. So they're looking from some girl who absolutely just wants to read the Bible all day. And so this is
Oh,
these came from there, but. Um,
okay. Man.
yeah, for the book, the book was um, what happened was one day I was doing a study in marriage, divorce, or remarriage in Bible college, and I was like, it's just really weird. Instead of saying men and women don't do this, men and women can do this, men and women don't do this. You see it's a lot in 1 Corinthians 7, as well as the rest of the Bible. Whenever there's passages about marriage, divorce, or remarriage, or even adultery, there was always like, oh yeah, men don't do this, 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 women don't do this, this, this. And there always seem to be different, right? Or like different laws. Like, matter of fact, the New Testament talks about widows, right? It says, hey, widow can't receive the widow's fund unless, she's been a wife of one husband. And then like also see that the wife's bound to the law of her husband. And you're like, well, wait a minute, where's it say that the guy's bound to the law of his wife? Like, and then you'll see that
Oh.
and then they'll say, like in 1 Corinthians 7:10, right? It'll say, hey, women, don't separate from your husbands. But if you do separate, remain unmarried or reconcile, and men, don't leave your wives. You're like, well, wait. Why are the women commanded here very clearly in the Greek not to remain on? They're supposed to remain unmarried or reconcile after separation, but then
Yeah.
the guys don't have that, right? And then you're reading this and you're like, wait a minute, why does Matthew and Mark in the gospel, why does Jesus only say men don't divorce your wives, right? And he's like, if you do, blah 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 blah, and that the women will automatically remarry, and that you cause her. Wait a minute, what about the woman initiating the divorce and causing the man to remarry and causing it? Wait, why is all the gender differences, right? And I was like, really, I had
Oh.
no idea. I'm super egalitarian, right, kind of thing, like the rest of people. And
Okay.
but I still believe, because the pastors teach us. The pastors teach, oh yeah, the pastors are supposed to be men. Pastors are supposed to be men. We should
Yeah.
have a man as a president. We should, so you hear about this
So
patriarchal structure.
are you were like officially egalitarian in the complementarian versus egalitarian sense, or you mean just
I
like in general
I
you
did. I
think
think
like
in general, yeah, I didn't have a theory, but I think in general, in practical application, I
okay.
knew for myself. I was like, one of the, like an example. One of the pastors said to me, "You got to make." When I was young, I was like 20, 25 years, somewhere really young. He was like, "Hey, you should, before you get married, you should make like $40,000 at least." And I was like, no, because if I make 35,000 and my wife makes 35,000, that's $70,000, right? And I was like, and I'm thinking like of this whole that's and that was totally normal. That wasn't, and then that's how everybody in the church thinks, like in mainline or mainstream Christianity, right?
Yeah.
They're like the principle of the man working, full time, and then the wife staying at home, even if she doesn't have children. Staying, I mean, that was as foreign that was as foreign as a concept as bride prices and dowry. That happened a long time ago. We stopped doing polygamy, bride prices and dowry, and the woman stays at home and raises the kids. Yeah, I mean, it's great for homeschoolers. I'm sure we have some weird sects of homeschoolers that do that. I mean, but if that's not what mainstream Christianity, and we're dealing with mega churches. So mega churches don't teach homeschooling that much. Well, mega churches are like, hey, what's the rest of society, does? How can we add a Christian bent to it and make a Christian worldview? That's, and have our coffee and latte in the church service and our donuts and, which we call them, energy bars, right? And we're just like, how do we, enjoy our California lifestyle, and that was accepted.
Where
by
was this
everybody.
in California too, Michael?
San Diego, California. So
Okay.
all over in San Diego. Yeah.
All right. So there's not many stay-at-home moms in San Diego, California.
There's a homeschool movement, but those guys are really those guys are like incels. Those guys are
separatists.
They do their own thing. They're totally they're Amish, right? If you're a homeschooler, you're basically an Amish that keeps their lights on at night. There's no difference, right? And so you have but they homeschoolers go to homeschool churches, right? They don't go to mainline churches, right? You don't have any of your friends who are, homeschooled. You don't have any friends who are Amish. You just never ran into them. They do different things. They're weird. Those kids, they're different. So you're like,
well, in Southern California, it was very kind of separated so I'm in the Midwest. I'm in central Illinois.
Yeah, you might have a mixture.
There is more of a mix. There'll be like, like I go to a large church. It's a Presbyterian PCA church. And, there's some homeschoolers, there's some public schoolers, there's some private schoolers. It's kind of a mix. There seems like there's more of a trend, especially with COVID, towards homeschooling. I think, especially with the internet tools that are available now for homeschooling, that kind of stuff. It just seems like that.
Right. Because homeschool is a fairly new movement, right? So you're dealing with, especially in California, right? You're dealing with the homeschool is fairly new. So it was back in the 70s, 80s. It was like just getting its legs, and the public school systems are like, hey, how do we handle this situation? But it was homeschool movement. It was very, 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 very new process, even though through all of history, until 100 years ago, everyone did homeschooling, right? I don't know if you know this. Public schooling didn't exist for 100 years, 150 years. And it was really invented, I know, a lot in America around 100, 150 years ago. But however, maybe it's the government doing such a good job, propaganda, I don't know. But for some reason, we just assume, the regular person assumes that the public school has always existed, from ages kindergarten to 12. We just presume it does. We really don't. We really don't have it. We also presume, like in our churches, they do such a good job. We presume that the kids go to kids' church and the adults go to adults' church. But that's super fair. That's a brand new process as well. Like the whole families would go to church for all of history until the last 100, 150 years. And the only thing that's really changed in the past 150 years is the feminism, right? That came in the 1850s. The 14th Amendment came. It gave legs, some enforcement power to be able to fight for constitutional rights in the courtrooms, for women to be able to vote, own land, and all this other stuff in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And then when they got their legs and they're like, okay, we have legal rights, it was all about equality. And then we saw America, right, and the rest of the world, right, especially England, same thing, England, we were hand in hand, really change. And now even Muslims, right, they have a problem with women who are feminists, right? Russia.
I've started hearing that even in Islam, it's starting to go that way.
It is, and their women are being rebellious, and they get the heads chopped off, and they have gender mutilation, but they will willingly go in and have their head uncovered because a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of the Muslim nations, they didn't have full parkas and stuff like that, and it wasn't until I think fairly recently they became
Oh,
really orthodox or really strict, and they started wearing and have all these rules. But yeah, but women are rebelling against that, and America's leading, right, the rest of the world in feminism. We're
yeah.
teaching the world how to be feminists, and the rest of the world is following us. Our legal system, our social system, our cultural. I mean, and
Mm.
so we are at fault for spreading. Matter of fact, people don't even know this. The right to vote didn't exist anywhere in the world except for one other small country, and then the United States was the very first country or nation that gave women the right to vote ever in all history. Right in
Wow,
1920,
I didn't
that's
know
like
that either.
we no,
Really?
we are the trendsetters. We're the trendsetters for feminism.
Wow. Okay. So boy, we should do probably a separate show on that feminism subject. But let me circle you back around. So you're at Bible college with Skip Heitzig Bible College that he would endorse or whatever. What was the name of the Bible college?
Calvary Chapel Bible College.
Calvin Chapel. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. So you're there, San Diego, blue skies, beaches. You're egalitarian, but you start reading the Bible and you start seeing like, hey, this doesn't seem so egalitarian as I study the scripture more. Is that kind of
Yeah,
what's
well, so what happened
happening?
was I was raised by a mother, right? I didn't
Okay.
have any skills, didn't know how to change tires. It was all like, it's you're just taught, right? Kind of thing that there's really no difference between, men and women.
Okay.
And then as you read the Bible, you're like, wait a minute, there's some differences. And then the church is all about most all the churches are like, hey, pastors are men, presidents are men, kind of thing. And
Mhm.
then but you don't hear anything as far as in the home. You hear the more, hey, men get 51% of the vote, women get 49. But hey, that like I don't know if you know, but that's how the family unit works. So it's kind of like,
Oh
hey,
man.
men are in charge in theory, but in practical application, happy wife, happy life. That's the practical
Oh
application
yeah.
that's taught in church.
Yeah.
So everyone, and this is the thing is that um, patriarchy, this is really interesting, is that the movement of patriarchy was really pushed forward by unbelievers. Unbelievers 20 years ago, 10
Mm.
years ago, they started pushing forward for men's rights. And they are the young ones, right? The military age
Okay.
and the unbelievers, those are the ones who are the dating gurus. Those are the ones who are pushing forward or saying, wait a minute, hey,
Oh.
something's wrong. Something's wrong. So our society is, super egalitarian, equal, equality. And
Mm.
men are like, no, we want to become like men. And so now
You
the
talking
church
like
is,
the pickup artist
yeah,
manosphere type of
all that
movement
stuff,
that
right?
happened?
But that
Yeah.
all started originally because of family courts, and then the fathers rights movement started
Okay.
saying, wait a minute, we need to, women under property right. What about coverture law? How come we're so different? How come the
Yeah.
child's assumed to go with the mother? And so with that, they became the red pill, and the red pill was like, wait a minute, men is so it's why can't men be men, and why do I lose custody of my child? Why am I a bad guy for just being a man, right? The rest of the world's already against you, and you're kind of used to it. You're like, okay, as a man, that doesn't mean that I get to lead. It means that I get to be a punching bag for the rest of society. That's what being a man is, and so you kind of accept that role. But
Yeah.
then a lot of just recently, probably in the past less than 10 years, 10 to 5 years, you have a lot of the younger men who are like, the Andrew Tates, right? Who are like, they're like,
Yeah.
like, hey, wait a minute. Well, this is how women respond. Women respond better if you are a man, right? If you're a
Mhm.
beta guy or you're a simp, right? These are the terms that you'll hear from the unbelievers. They're the
Yeah.
ones who are like, they're the ones who are pushing patriarchy. Now, what happened is the church is not pushing patriarchy in the home because the pastors very clearly, we just saw a video recently where Rulon, I don't know if you know Rulon, he admits talking to an attorney about why are women initiate 70 to up to 80% of the divorces. Why aren't the pastors up there telling women don't initiate divorce, right? Why aren't they going after, and then
Is
Rulon,
it Ru or
Ruslan, sorry,
yeah,
Ruslan.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did a couple
Yeah,
videos on him because he had a female pastor on his show one time. I did a video
yeah,
about
yeah,
that because
yeah,
the
I didn't
female
watch it.
pastor couldn't find a man. She's like, yeah, it's tough out in
Yeah.
these streets to find a man, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. Because so many men want to marry a pastor. Yeah, that's a,
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you know what? That's yeah. And so So long story short, past 5-10 years, right? The manosphere, right? The
yeah.
unbelievers really majority. So when the red pill originally started, it was Christian men saying, oh, "Wait a minute, something's not right here. Where are our
Mhm.
rights? We got some gender issue problems." But then the younger military age unbelievers are like starting Andrew Tate and so forth. They're starting to come forward and they're starting to
Yeah.
push it. And now that they've pushed it and now it's becoming more socially acceptable to talk about patriarchy. You see, this is important. The word patriarchy was used as feminist propaganda during no fault time. So it was used by the feminists to create a hatred towards men
Huh.
during the no fault period. So they actually created that term. Well, it was created before that, but they stamped that word to be able
Okay.
to be able to say like, oh yeah, patriarchy. Oh yeah, that's toxic masculinity. It means the exact same thing, and that's why the
Mm.
feminists were trying to push the word patriarchy. But
Okay.
the church never pushed back against women, right? We hear the word complementarian, but even the word complementarian or complementarianism it's a sellout, right? Because what it is
Yeah.
saying we believe in patriarchal ideas, but in practical application, we believe in egalitarian, right, principles. And what you do is you take the two, shake it in a ball, and whatever comes out, that's good for your family. But yeah, men are not taught to lead, right? What we're taught is in the Bible in 1 Corinthians 14, it says, hey, if a woman has a question in the church, she's supposed to remain silent. And if she has any question, she goes home and asks her husband. So it says
Yeah.
her, hey, go ask your husband at home. Right.
Yeah.
But what are we taught? We're like, hey, if a woman has a Bible question, we send her to women's ministries. Well,
Mm.
Titus 2 says women's ministries is for the older women to teach the younger women, not Bible stories, but to teach them how to be chaste, homemakers,
Yeah.
lover of their husbands, lover of their children. These are for practical application for be able to have a house to run a household, right? Or to be able to
Yeah.
manage a household. It's
And
not
when
about going to women's studies. Yeah.
All right, well, that's part two of my interview with Michael Sayen. Good stuff. I'm hoping you're enjoying this. And I want you to remember that Christ is winning. He is building his church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Postmillennial Man.